Welcome to Learning Out Loud, a space for honest conversation as life is happening. I'm Kate, and this podcast is about navigating the moments that shape us, the stress, the growth, and the uncertainty, and the lessons we only learn by living them. Now, I'm not here as an expert with all the answers. I'm here learning in real time, sharing what I'm noticing along the way and holding space for those figuring it out too. So, wherever you're listening from, walking, driving, or just taking a moment for yourself, I'm really glad you're here. Let's learn out loud together. I think one of the strangest things in life is how quickly we move on from things that we once prayed about. We spend so much of our time hoping for something, working towards something, or waiting for something. And then by the time that it comes, it's just in our lives and we're already focused on the millions of things that we see ahead of us. And by the time it eventually comes, we are so inundated with all the new plans and goals that we have for ourselves that they just become part of our natural life and often go overlooked. Recently, I've been realizing how important it is to really take a pause and to notice these things. And that's really what I want to talk about today. Gratitude, solitude, and the quiet power of slowing down and recognizing where you already are. Now, in a world where things are constantly moving, it's very hard to focus and notice the two. Both of these things can feel hugely unfamiliar. And I think for me, gratitude isn't just saying thank you for the things that we've got and for the good in life. It really is sitting in that moment and actually being aware of exactly where you're at, why certain things are happening. And instead of looking forward at all the things we want to do, it's probably the only time I will ever advise anyone to actually look backwards, because we all do it. I do it all the time, and I really have to sit with myself and say, like, Kate, I know you have all these ambitions and these desires, but look at where you are now and think about the things that you were hoping for and wishing for, 6 to 12 months ago. And within that, you then get that validation and that accomplishment of actually, yeah, like I've achieved everything and more of that. And I think I may have mentioned in an episode before where I did an exercise because I found myself in a state of mind where I was really comparing myself. And not that I was comparing myself to anybody else, I was comparing myself to myself 6 months ago. And I was thinking, I used to be skinnier, I used to be really active, and I was really positive, and now I'm just exhausted. And I'm not prioritizing my fitness. I'm like so busy with other things. Like, God, I've really lost myself. It took me putting these two pictures side by side and I'm writing some things on them of, what I once had and what I now have, what I think I'm lacking, what I lacked at that time as well. And that then made me realize actually everything I was lacking, I've now gained. Everything I had, I already have. And everything I wanted, I now also have as well. So I'm like, actually, why am I comparing myself to 6 months ago, me? Because actually, I'm far better now. I'm baptized. I'm settled in my career. I have my own place. Like, I just kept thinking of all these things. And I was thinking, my goodness, all I was really comparing myself to is the fact that I actually had abs 6 months ago. That was literally it. Like, that was literally. And it sent me in this spiral because I was just like, oh goodness, I've really let myself go. And realistically, it's because I had these new goals in my head of, well, this is what I want to do and this is how I want to take my career. And I'm always looking forward, which is a really great thing to have. But also at the same time, it reminds me that I need to take that time in solitude to actually notice and connect with where I am now. Now, I actually looked into what the word gratitude actually means and where it comes from. And it's actually a Latin term called gratus, which means thankful, appreciative, and full of grace. And I really like that idea because it embodied this idea that gratitude isn't about forcing yourself to feel positive, it's about recognizing that grace already exists in your life. And I think one of the reasons why gratitude can be so difficult sometimes is because we find it so hard as human beings in these busy, chaotic lifestyles that we live to actually slow down and notice this. And they say that gratitude is like the memory of the heart, and it's an important muscle to train, just as your brain is in terms of your mindfulness. Like having that gratitude within your heart really helps you go through a lot of the tough times in life because you understand how to not only see the good in every situation, but actually feel it too. And I'm so big on, everything happens for a reason and, God has a plan. But there's a difference between trusting in a plan and trusting in an outcome and actually being present and appreciative in the reality of the situations as well. And I keep talking about this theme about slowing down and trying to notice things. And that's where the side of solitude comes in. And I spoke about in last week's episode about how I was almost forced into a moment of solitude and how much it made me realize about myself and my purpose and things. And it also just gave me this immense amount of gratitude towards my life. Like, I have walked into work this week loving my job, absolutely loving my job. I've loved life. I've been so happy because I'm like, do you know what? Actually, yeah, I love this. Like, well, why am I grumbling? Why am I grumbling? And it's just crazy how consumed we all get in comparison and where we think we should be, and really just lacking the awareness of exactly where we are and giving ourselves the credit. Now, I'm terrible for this anyway because I'm not really the best when it comes to rewarding myself or giving credit to myself, because I am one of those people that always thinks that I can do better and there's more, and I'm always thinking about the next, the next, the next. And it's not to say that I don't think I'm good enough, because I've got great self awareness and great self worth, but it's just those achievements don't phase me. I'm just, by the time I've finished and completed that, I'm already on to the next five things anyway. So it's kind of just like they often do get overlooked. So I'm like the biggest, you know, embodiment of this whole conversation because I do it all the time. I guess this situation really has taught me to really practice what I preach, because I tell people all the time, like, be grateful for where you're at. Like, think about where you were months ago. And it's so easy to just forget that. There's a real importance in solitude. And I even asked somebody at work today, and this is where the whole kind of inspiration for today's podcast came from. And I said to her, like, do you ever drive in silence? And she said, no, I couldn't do that. I couldn't imagine myself doing that. And I said, sometimes I go to the gym in silence. Like, that is my moment for my brain to process things. Because she was like, well, I wouldn't concentrate if I was in silence. And I'm like, yeah, because you've got like a boatload of like thoughts in your brain that have been like wanting to come out, but there's not been that silence. And I even noticed it today on my walk. I was trying to listen to a podcast, but there was something on my heart that I wanted to think about. And because I was listening to the podcast, I wasn't giving myself the space, and it made me start to feel a little bit like tense. And I was just like, I really need to think about this thing. So I took my headphones off, I walked in silence, and lo and behold, the thoughts settled, I let them out, and I felt fine afterwards. And that's the thing, is our brain is craving these moments of solitude because, one, it's a time for us to process our thoughts. And then a byproduct of clearing those thoughts is then that we start to think and be aware of our surroundings, and we really connect with ourselves. And it's that time to have that check in as well. It's just as powerful as meditation sometimes. And I think a lot of us really do forget that we are in need of that. Like, as human beings, we don't want constant distractions. We sit there, we're scrolling on our phones all the time, we're listening to music, we're in conversation, we're in the company of other people, we're doing a task, we're working, we're training at the gym. Like, there's just always these distractions that actually our boredom muscle grows really weak, and we're not used to sitting in solitude and sitting in silence. And yeah, I think there's a real beauty in being able to not just sit alone, but sit with yourself. And there's a big difference. Like, find company within your own solitude. I've been saying for quite a few weeks, like, I'm on this season of solitude, and people are like, what define that? Like, what do you mean by season of solitude? And it really is about, as I said, not just sitting alone, but sitting and connecting with myself, listening to my thoughts, exposing things that maybe I've been compressing and squashing down, and really being honest with myself and allowing things to come out as they wish. And it's given me much more awareness of the things around me. And don't get me wrong, it's not always positive. Like, sometimes you notice things that you don't want to notice, or you have a little bit too much time in your own brain, and you start to think the other way. And there's a balance that you have to find. It's kind of like a sweet spot. But solitude is one of the most rewarding things you can do for yourself if you do feel like you're in these constant states of just exhaustion and frustration, and you don't know where you're at in life, and you're not happy, and you feel like you're comparing yourself, and you're maybe getting into like a little insecure bubble, and you're just confused basically. Then it's major alarm bells that you just need to sit with yourself. sit in silence, put some frequencies on at most, but ideally dead silence. Like try on your way to work, driving in silence, on your way back, driving in silence, because music is a distraction. And don't get me wrong, I am a lover of music. Like that is the key to my heart. However, it still is a distraction. It's an escape for me. So I try and utilize those lengthy periods of time where I've got nothing but concentration and just sitting with myself to just sit in silence. And even before bed, rather than watching something before sleeping, I do just sometimes just sit with my own thoughts and just think, what's coming up, because also that's where creativity comes from. And there's been a lot of times in my life where I've just felt this, like I'm running into a brick wall, and I'm just like, there's no creativity, there's no inspiration, there's no ideas in me. And it's actually because I've realized, well, actually I haven't been bored enough to create inspiration, because that's where creativity comes from. Yeah, I've just noticed some of my best ideas have come up when I've actually allowed myself to sit in solitude and understand what it is that I want, what it is that I enjoy. And I'm so bored that I start to think, what else can I do? I just think it's very important, but often very, very overlooked. As I've said many a times with these podcasts, like I really am learning with you guys. And I think what the most exciting part is I'm actually on this new season of becoming, and I've got lots of exciting ideas, lots of different things that I want to branch out to doing, and different things I want to post. And it's just really nice to be able to show you guys, like time and time again, this blueprint that I've mapped out for myself like really does work. And now I'm embarking on new challenges and new adventures. I'm obviously dealing with a devastating scenario as well, but I'm holding myself so high and so happy throughout it, because I have this faith and this trust that it's worked a million times before and it's going to work again, and I'm going to learn a lot along the way. So I really am taking each stride with you guys. Like I always say, it's not linear, it's not easy, it's not always comfortable, and I still get moments, even in these days, where I start to think, oh, no, I don't want to do that. Like, is this the right thing? And this solitude also teaches you intentionality as well, and it helps you understand, like I said in last week's episode about purpose. Like, solitude is just like the gateway to everything, really. And it's just so important. I think especially as women, like, I'm as feminine as it gets. Like, I literally am like, there was a time in my life where I was very like in my masculine, like business driven and trying to be Miss Independent, whereas now I'm just a soft little bean. It just, does like to be feminine, but also within that, instead of having that independence as a sign of strength, it's actually a sign of solitude. Like, I actually look forward to the ends of the day where I actually get to go and sit in my own company and think about things, and it makes me much more selective with who I share my time with and how often I share my time with people. And yeah, it's taught me a lot. I definitely do want to do an episode at some point about balancing your feminine energy and your masculine, because that's something that I really worked on last year. Now, sometimes the thought of being alone in silence with our own thoughts is absolutely terrifying. So, before throwing you into the deep end, I want to invite you into a safe and encouraging space that kind of shows you the beauty of solitude, so that you can start to familiarize yourself with taking the time, first of all. And then once you learn how to take the time and to enter that almost hypnotic state of presence and connection with yourself, then you can slowly branch off in your own time into those moments of solitude and really know how to think, because thinking seems like such a subconscious thing, but actually thinking requires a lot of thought sometimes. And it's very new to us, which is crazy, but we are just unfortunately used to lives that don't stop and distractions at our fingertips. So I've actually created some affirmation episodes on Spotify, and I will leave the link in the description. So if you're not quite comfortable sitting in that dead silence, I really encourage you to have a little listen. They are no longer than 3 minutes. That is just the start of many things that I've got bubbling away in my little brain. But yeah, so join me on this journey as I start to grow myself in this space as well. Wherever you are right now, I want you to take a small pause. Notice something in your life that maybe you once prayed for, waited for, or hoped for that is now right in front of you. And I want you to sit with that for a second. Gratitude doesn't always have to be loud. Sometimes it's quietly sitting in the grace of what's already good. Thank you as always for taking this moment with me. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and I'll speak to you next time.